You know, it's around about the halfway mark that fans like to take stock of a series. We're at that halfway mark now, and I don't think Ahsoka's given us anything to worry about. Welcome back to the channel. Let's get into it with a recap of Part 4, Fallen Jedi, before breaking down the fine details that make this episode so amazing. Because that's what we do here at Star Wars Sublight, where overanalyzing the galaxy is our speciality. The episode was directed by Peter Ramsey, one of the directors for Sony's Into the Spider-Verse. The episode runs 41 minutes long with credits and propelled the story to new frontiers. Part 4 picks up immediately after Part 3, with Ahsoka, Sabine, and Huyang on Cetos making repairs in the forest before a search party leads Marok and Shin to their location. Meanwhile, Hera takes matters into her own hands on Home 1. After learning the New Republic fleet would not be mobilized to counter the threat of Thrawn's return, she breaks off with a posse of X-Wings in tow as they make their way to Cetos.
Once a rebel, always a rebel.
Planetside, and Morgan activates the Pathfinder to make the calculations needed for their jump beyond the galaxy. Ahsoka and Sabine search for Morgan's ground base and run into Marok and Shin in the forest.
Going somewhere?
Ahsoka makes short work of Marok, and against Huyang's best wishes, the pair split up. Ahsoka gets to the ground base in time to meet with Baylan, who lectures her about the past and possible futures.
Anakin spoke highly of you. Few would live to see what he became.
Ahsoka is defeated and Sabine is given a difficult choice: either destroy the map to Ezra for everyone, or join Baylan in his crusade across the stars. Sabine is brought aboard the Eye of Sion as it leaves the atmosphere and goes into hyperspace. Ahsoka wakes up in the world between worlds, a dimension outside the known galaxy and a nexus in the Force. There she's reunited with her master, Anakin Skywalker. This episode had everything you're looking for: incredible action, great pacing, and had me at the edge of my seat the entire time. I have no notes. This is top tier Star Wars. With that said, let's take a look at 6 details that made this episode so great. Some of these details are easy to miss, others are pretty obvious, but they have really interesting ties to Star Wars at large. Starting with number 1, what the hell came out of Marok? When Ahsoka laid waste to Marok, he burst open with what looked like smoke or spores. We've actually seen something similar happen before, just not in live action. What spills out of Marok is actually the result of Night Sister magic, no doubt Morgan Elsbeth's doing.
Witchcraft.
And the name Marok has origins to Arthurian legend. He was a knight who was cursed by a witch and enslaved, and it looks like this Marok shares the same fate. His demise reminded me of both Maul and his brother Savage for different reasons. Maul because he's similarly cut down in a brief duel with Obi-Wan during the 3rd season of Star Wars Rebels. And Savage because, like Marok, he withers while Night Sister magic leaves his body, which was artificially filling him with strength and rage. How about the fact that Ahsoka picks a fight with Baylan?
I'm not here to discuss my past.
You'll notice that when coming face to face with another former Jedi, Ahsoka draws first.
How inevitable.
Baylan continues to be an interesting antagonist for Ahsoka and the gang, but in this episode we see he was perfectly content with meeting with Ahsoka and discussing his plan in hopes of finding some common ground.
The only reason I'm here is to secure the future.
It's clear that he respects her more than she does him, and Ahsoka is quick to draw her lightsaber, much to Baylan's dismay. Or perhaps he was simply stalling while the coordinates were uploaded to the Eye of Sion.
Lord Baylan has remedied the situation. Calculations are complete.
Let's talk about Ahsoka's legacy, Sabine's family, and the pair's fallout. It looks like we now know what went down between Sabine and Ahsoka before the series began. Part 1 opens with the pair having not spoken to each other in years, Ahsoka dropping Sabine as her Padawan and Sabine feeling wronged by something in their past. If you're listening during Ahsoka's duel with Baylan, he tells her that her legacy is that of destruction and death. And once he's defeated Ahsoka, he gets to work on Sabine.
You don't know what you're talking about.
That's where it's revealed that Ahsoka prevented her Padawan from joining the fight to reclaim Mandalore from Imperial control, a war which Sabine and her family started during Star Wars Rebels. We've seen what becomes of Mandalore in The Mandalorian, but Baylan reveals the fight cost Sabine her family.
Your family died on Mandalore because your master didn't trust you.
And this is why Sabine and Ahsoka are not on good terms, and it explains the frosty reunion in part 1.
You never make things easy.
You never made things easy for me, Master.
This would also explain Baylan's line to Ahsoka about her legacy, having prevented Sabine from being there to potentially save her family's life.
Your legacy, like your master's, was one of death and destruction.
There are some Thrawn Easter eggs laid out in Ahsoka Part 4. When Baylan is explaining why he's working with Morgan Elsbeth, he says he's fighting for the greater good.
To serve a greater good.
The Greater Good is the second book in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, and the 5th book based on Thrawn's past in canon. Written by the character's original creator Timothy Zahn, this book deals with the foundations for Thrawn's first exile from his home galaxy, before emerging in the galaxy we're more familiar with. Oh, and by the way, Timothy Zahn is also a consultant on this show, presumably on all things Thrawn and Chiss culture, so perhaps this was stuck in as a nod to the man responsible.
Well, thank you for inviting me down.
There's actually 2 Thrawn titles spoken in this episode. Ahsoka also names Thrawn as heir to the Empire, which is the first story by Zahn which introduced the Grand Admiral way back in 1991.
Better that than allowing Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire.
Well, we won't be seeing him again.
And even though there isn't much of it left after the Eye of Sion escapes, we have confirmation that Phoenix Squadron is still flying in 11 ABY. That's when the series is set, by the way. Phoenix Squadron was Hera's first command as rebel leader and was originally made up of mostly X-Wings back before the Battle of Scarif. And I'm pretty sure there's nothing that Phoenix Squadron hasn't seen by this point. They've gone up against Darth Vader twice. And finally, number 7. Ahsoka Part 4's title could refer to any of these characters, as each of the Jedi featured have strayed from the Order and the Jedi Code. Baylan has refused his status as a Jedi in Part 1. Ahsoka too, but more likely I would say it's her eagerness to fight Baylan that probably goes against the code. Sabine chooses her attachment to Ezra over the destruction of the star map, and when the offer to join forces with darkness arrives, like it does with so many Star Wars stories, Sabine actually accepts. Shin Hati has rage within her and uses the dark side to choke Sabine. She's infuriated for having been bested in the forest, and potentially jealous of her master's attention.
Shin, release her.
And finally, the Jedi whose fall brought down the Order itself, Anakin Skywalker appears in the episode's final moments. Perhaps the episode's title isn't about any one Jedi in particular, but about these fallen Jedi and how they choose to operate in a galaxy when there's no longer any Jedi Order to serve. Besides, I'm pretty sure the plural to Jedi is Jedi. That's all the interesting details that I caught in Part 4, Fallen Jedi, and there's only one thing left to do, and that's select our most valuable player. This time, I've got to give it up to Hu Yang, who proved that this droid is no damsel in distress. While outside repairing the ship, Hu Yang gets jumped by an assassin droid, and instead of immediately calling for help, he starts throwing hands. Hu Yang is thousands of years old and a little bit out of his league, so you can't knock the guy when he does eventually call for backup. What did you make of Ahsoka Part 4, Fallen Jedi? Perhaps you picked up on something that we didn't cover here. Let me know in the comments. Remember to sub to Sublight if you're not already. Leave a like if you learned something new, and I'll catch you next time. But until then, allow me the pleasure of saying that the Force will be with you. Always.